Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today is going to be a bit of a rambly type of video, mild kind of minor type of update style video, but the general kind of idea behind this video is I want to talk about the state of Overwatch on YouTube and why I think that the Overwatch team in a lot of ways kind of hurt the Overwatch scene on YouTube in ways that have been very, very frustrating. And for me, as someone who has done both Overwatch kind of story, lore, gameplay side of content, as well as Overwatch esports, Overwatch League style of content. I have done both of them. I did them both at the same time at certain points. I feel like I have an interesting perspective on what has happened and why I think that the Overwatch community at large was hurt in a lot more ways by the kind of lack of updates and lack of content that we got from Team 4 for 2 years, essentially. I think that's had further reaching impacts than I think certain sides of the fan base will recognize and understand. And I think some of it just comes down to this kind of factor that there was not a lot of content coming out from the Overwatch team. So for a little bit of background, because I think it's important, I know a lot of the people who watched my videos recently have kind of come into the channel in the past year. This season in particular, I've seen kind of the most growth my channel has had since I started making Overwatch content back in 2018. And when I first started making Overwatch content, I did not talk about the Overwatch League. Really, I talked about it a little bit, but I talked about it more in the sense of it was an aspect of Overwatch news. Because when I really first started making Overwatch content back in 2018, my main focus was just talking about the news in the Overwatch scene. And I made this video series that I did every week called Overwatch Weekly, where I broke down the news that was going on. I looked through the forums and through articles on Google and Twitter and Reddit, and I really just dug deep and looked for Overwatch news to kind of talk about and share and kind of give my thoughts on, because I thought it was an interesting thing. I didn't think there was a ton of channels that were kind of doing a kind of broad-reaching thing and really trying to highlight every aspect of the Overwatch community. And I was really, really happy and really, really proud of what Overwatch Weekly was in 2018 and 2019 and early 2020, when I was really putting out these videos on a regular basis every single week. I think I missed, like, from when I started until when I stopped, I think I missed 1 week ever. And it was because I was out of the country. And so I couldn't record a video because I was on a trip out of the country. So I wasn't going to record a video. But I was doing these like every single week, basically, just talking about news and talking about news. And it wasn't until 2019, really, that I started doing, or for the 2019 Overwatch League season, that I started doing regular Overwatch League content. Going into the 2019 season, I started doing my kind of roster breakdowns that I do, roster preview type videos that I do before the season every season. That was the first season when I did it, and I loved making those videos. I still love making those videos. Those are probably my favorite videos that I make every single year. I love them. I think they're so fun and they're so interesting, because I usually am wrong. But I think they're fun and they're interesting, and they're just a cool way for me, at least, to familiarize myself with some of the players going into the season. Helps, I think, some of the fans potentially familiarize themselves with some of the players. So that began in 2019 with me making those videos. And so in 2019, I was really doing kind of split time. It was Monday was my picks, Wednesday was Overwatch Weekly, Monday was recap, Wednesday was Overwatch Weekly, Friday was picks, and it was a very, 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 it worked really, really well. I was in a flow making content. I was really happy with the state of the channel at that point in time, just kind of how I kind of figured that stuff out. Off-season would come around, and I would still find videos to make for the Overwatch League, power rankings, other types of stuff, but back in 2019, there was a lot more regular content coming out, that it was easy in the off-season to talk about other things. Because typically, at that point in time, when the off-season comes around, you had the World Cup in 2019, you had BlizzCon, you had other things like that. And so you had a build-up to BlizzCon, and then you had the build-up to the Overwatch League season. And so it all kind of flowed together, and it worked really, really well. It was a really perfect off-season cycle back then. And then 2020 happens. COVID hits, Overwatch 2 is announced at the end of 2019, and basically Overwatch starts to die in 2020. Really when that was kind of the content drought began. And I think that a lot of my feelings and opinions towards making Overwatch casual types of videos kind of changed. And for a while in 2020, I still made Overwatch weeklies. I think I still made them through like June of 2020. Maybe it was a little earlier, a little later. I don't remember exactly when. I think it was around June of 2020 when I stopped making Overwatch weekly because it got to a point where it wasn't really that enjoyable anymore. And it wasn't that fun for me to make those videos anymore. You know, I remember it would be like 10, 11 o'clock at night, the night before those videos were supposed to go up. And I would be playing video games, and I would just hit with the realization of like, I haven't recorded an Overwatch weekly yet this week. I haven't even gone and looked for stories this week. And I think that happened about 2 or 3 weeks in a row before I kind of said, why am I even making these videos anymore? When I don't enjoy making them that much anymore, and there's nothing to talk about because Overwatch news is so dead right now. And so I stopped making the videos. I put the series on hiatus, whatever. I didn't know how long it would be. You know, I think in the moment when I did it, I was kind of like, it'll just be a couple of years, or not a couple of years. It'll probably just be like a few months, and then Overwatch news will start kicking back up again, and I'll bring it back. And then it never picked back up in 2021, and I got really into making Overwatch League content very heavily. But I think you kind of can tell by a lot of the content droughts that I've had on my channel over the off seasons of the past 2 seasons. Between 2020 and 2021, in like October, November, December of 2020, I made almost no videos because I just had no motivation to make Overwatch related content because I didn't think there was nothing to talk about. There was nothing interesting going on. I had some real world stuff going on as well that kind of played into it as well. But generally speaking, it was just because there was nothing to talk about in 2020 in the off season between the 2020 and 2021 Overwatch League seasons. Then the 2021 season comes about, and we get a little bit more Overwatch 2 news here and there, but generally speaking, there wasn't much. But it was enough that I can make like whenever that stuff came about, like whenever there was news to talk about, it was such a big deal that I was excited for it every single time, and I wanted to talk about it because it was the first time we got news in several months, you know. And this past off season, I think I made some more videos a little bit more regularly, but even still, I had a bit of a content drought, especially because this off season was so much longer than the previous off seasons. So I definitely still had a content drought in the off season, and we were getting more regular kind of news updates though, so it made it a little bit easier, but still wasn't a lot. And so now we're in 2022, and I still love making Overwatch League content. It is still the thing that I enjoy making the most, but I really want to make Overwatch 2 content as well. But I find it really, really hard to care enough about making Overwatch 2 content because I think that the audience isn't there anymore. When I really first started getting into Overwatch as a game, I got into it because of that casual side, right? The characters, the lore, the world of Overwatch. That was the type of stuff I was really into. I loved, looking at who could be new heroes. What are some of these stories about Overwatch that you maybe don't know? These backstories for characters, all this other stuff, right? This was a thing that I thought was really, really cool when I first got into Overwatch. That there was all this content that was amazing to watch, that I loved following because it was just so good and it was so interesting because I felt like that was really the cool side of Overwatch, was the casual side of things, the story, the world. It's to me the thing that makes Overwatch so different from your other FPS games, right? Like Apex Legends, I think, is the thing that comes closest. I think Valorant has done a good job with it as well. But Overwatch came out before those 2 games, right? Before Overwatch, I don't really think there was any other game that had that interesting kind of hero dynamic. TF2 had it to a degree, but the roster wasn't that big in TF2, right? But in Overwatch, the roster is big, and it kept growing and expanding, and the world kept feeling bigger and bigger and nicer, and it felt like a very awesome world that they were building. And I loved that. It was the thing about Overwatch that really drew me to the game. It wasn't really the gameplay. I stayed for the gameplay because eventually the gameplay hooked me enough that I kept playing the game. But it really was just like getting to kind of get to know these characters and experience this world that really drew me to Overwatch back in 2017 when I first started playing. And I feel like now, when I think about Overwatch 2 and I think about making content, I'm just like a lot of the big creators that made Overwatch content when I started kind of watching it, the big creators I used to watch, a lot of them don't make content anymore. Stylos is really the big one that's still around and still makes Overwatch content, and he has been very vocal about how awful it's been making Overwatch content for the past 2 years, even like 3 years. He's been talking about it since well before I would have ever even talked about it, because I have been really, really, really unwilling for a long time to say that Overwatch has been dead, because I feel like as a fan of the game, I don't want to admit that it's dead, because then I feel like I'm giving up in a sense. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to feel like I was accepting defeat. But, I watched TGN when they used to make Overwatch content. They haven't uploaded a video in over a year. O'Nickel is someone who I watched in the Pokemon days for O'Nickel, and then he moved over to Overwatch, and then I started watching his Overwatch videos. He doesn't make Overwatch videos anymore. He moved on to other things. He doesn't care about Overwatch anymore. Like, that whole side of Overwatch's community, like the YouTube side of things, that really fun, like, talking about heroes and, like, getting excited for, like, the future of the game itself and, like, the story in the world, that entire side of the Overwatch community on YouTube is basically dead. You'll still find it, of course, on Twitter and on Reddit and stuff like that. You'll find that side of the Overwatch fandom. But the, like, side of the YouTube community for Overwatch that was focused on that has basically died. And I honestly think so much of it comes down to the way that the Overwatch dev team handled Overwatch 1 and Overwatch 2 and the transition between them. Because essentially, right, 2019, we get the announcement of Overwatch 2, and nothing happens after that for an entire year. We literally heard nothing about Overwatch 2 for an entire year. And we just had one hero come out in Overwatch 1, and it was in the first half of 2020. And the entire rest of the year, we had absolutely nothing. Obviously, COVID happened, and that is something that is somewhat forgivable for the dev team that they deal with that. But there was a lot more that they could have done even with COVID. And so I look now and I look and kind of see where the YouTube side of the Overwatch community is at. I don't care about that side of it anymore. Not because I don't care about that side of the game anymore, because I do still care about that side of the game, but because who's making content anymore? There's nobody out there making content anymore for that. I have transitioned almost entirely to focusing on more Overwatch League specific type of content, like Plat Chat, like ATP, right? These are the types of channels now that I find myself watching more regularly. People like Custa and Reinforce and Avast and Sideshow. Those are the channels that and the personalities who I really now care about what they have to say and like to listen to what their feedback is. People who are connected to the Overwatch League scene. When back in 2019, I was definitely like making Overwatch League content, but I didn't watch all that much Overwatch League content. But I started going towards Overwatch League content because that's all there was for so long. And I've always felt that esports and gameplay sides of games, right? If you want to watch gameplay, you're probably not going to watch much of it on YouTube. You're going to look for a streamer who's streaming on Twitch, because Twitch is the premier streaming platform. I'm not going to argue against that. You're going to watch Super on Twitch. You're going to watch Seagull on Twitch, ML7 on Twitch, right? Like, that's what you're going to go to Twitch for, right? To watch people actually play the game, get to kind of watch their gameplay, learn from them as they play. That's kind of why you're on Twitch, right? On YouTube, people might watch like highlights, but usually they're watching very specific highlights from like the streamer that they like to watch. And even if you are watching highlights, they're edited in a specific way. They're edited for comedic timing. They're edited for very specific things. There's a very different feel between a YouTube video and a Twitch stream. And I've always felt like what the YouTube audience for Overwatch looks for and what the Twitch audience looks for are very, very different. They're different sides of the game. The casual fan base is way more prominent on YouTube. The competitive fan base is way more prominent on Twitch. There's crossover, obviously, but I feel like, generally speaking, that is how things work. And so when the Overwatch League made the move to YouTube, I was incredibly excited. And I know a lot of people are very critical of the move. A lot of people think it was the wrong move to make. But I do not think that, as someone who does not necessarily like Twitch as a platform. I won't get too much into it, but I prefer YouTube as a platform. It's the content I prefer to consume is VOD content. I think it's more enjoyable. I think it's just more entertaining. I've never been big into streaming, never been big into watching streams. For me, really, the only streams I watch on a regular basis are the Overwatch League. That's literally it. I went to Twitch basically just for the Overwatch League. Now there's a couple other streams I'll watch here and there, like Critical Role, for example, is a big thing that I do watch live, but it's also technically not live, and it's like very, very, very heavily produced content, right? So I'm not a Twitch viewer, right? Like, I'm just not a Twitch watcher. And even when I watch Critical Role, I watch it on YouTube. So regardless. And so I felt like when they made that move, it felt like, as someone who made YouTube content, someone who loved making that casual side of things, my content would get picked up more on the algorithm, and the casual fan base would grow more because Overwatch would be really big on YouTube. Because it's very obvious that there were three reasons why Blizzard made the decision, or Activision Blizzard Esports made the decision to move Call of Duty and Overwatch Esports onto YouTube, right? Number one is money. I am sure Google offered a lot more money than Amazon is willing to offer, because Amazon doesn't need to offer a lot of money, because they don't really care if they lose the Overwatch League, because they already have League. They already have Dota. They already have Rocket League. They have basically every other esport. They're fine losing one like Overwatch League when it's not as big as the other ones. And I think that's also part of the reason why they went to YouTube, because they knew they could become like the premier esports on YouTube as a platform. That could be the thing that they had way more connection to Google and YouTube to make changes and to have a meaningful kind of impact on the platform, which they have. Clipping is a thing now because of the Overwatch League. 4K quality streams are a thing because of YouTube. Drops are a thing because of the Overwatch League. Like, these are things that didn't exist, that the Overwatch League literally basically told Google and YouTube, you got to figure this stuff out. And they did. That's the reason why that stuff exists, because the Overwatch League pushed for it and got it happening. And the other reason why I think Overwatch League made them switch to YouTube was because they wanted to use YouTube as the platform for Overwatch. They wanted that to be the thing that they could do. They wanted to make YouTube content on the Overwatch League YouTube channel. They wanted to grow the community on YouTube. And I think the Overwatch League has done a fantastic job at really trying to work with YouTube to grow YouTube as a platform. On the other side, I think the Overwatch team has done absolutely nothing to benefit YouTube and to help the fact that the Overwatch League made a huge leap over to YouTube, and I think the Overwatch team has done very little to do anything with that. Every time there's any type of event, it's always on Twitch when it comes to the Overwatch team. Anytime there's any type of streaming, whatever, streaming event, this kind of brig skin that's going on right now, only through Twitch. And some of that is because of YouTube as a platform, and I think there's limitations. But, you can become, a member on YouTube. That is what that is. That is the point of that. YouTube streamers can get basically Twitch subscriptions, right? So the fact that you can't get it through YouTube and only can get it through Twitch, to me, is this really weird thing where the Overwatch League has dedicated themselves to YouTube as a platform, and the Overwatch team has basically just said, no, we're still going to stick with Twitch. And that disconnect between Team 4 and the Overwatch League, to me, was really the thing that ultimately killed Overwatch on YouTube. Because the Overwatch team didn't give any content for the casual side of the fan base, which generally thrives on YouTube. And every time they did any type of community-driven content, community-driven anything, it was always done through Twitch. Every single time. And so it's been very frustrating as a YouTube creator who has wanted to make content about Overwatch 2 and the future of the game to want to make content about it, because I just feel like there's nothing going on. And there was a drought for so long that now that we finally have that content again, I've lost the passion that I had in 2020 to make those types of videos. I held on for so long for what we're getting now. We're getting so much content. We're getting so much transparency from devs. We're getting dev updates and blog posts and betas and all the stuff that should be amazing and should be the type of content that the casual Overwatch audience on YouTube should love. But they're gone because Overwatch's dev team didn't give that side of the community anything. And the Overwatch League has done so much to carry Overwatch over the past 2 years. 2.5 years even potentially. Where the Overwatch League team has done so much to engage with the community, connect with the community, make the community feel like they matter, make the community feel heard, and actually give back to the YouTube side of the community, which we have literally not seen happen at all from the dev team over the past couple of years. And so I find it really difficult to find that passion to make that content again, which I would love to. The views aren't really there either, and that's just a reflection of what things are, right? People don't care as much about that side of YouTube content or Overwatch content anymore, at least on my channel. I won't speak as much for other channels as well. but all of my videos about like Overwatch as the game perform worse than my Overwatch League videos. Why? Because people don't care about that stuff anymore. People care about the Overwatch League now. They don't care about anything else because that whole side of YouTube, the Overwatch fan community built on their just love for the world, has basically been driven off the platform because there was just nothing here. And it makes me really sad to kind of see that that is the state of Overwatch on YouTube, where there was this essential, basically a seismic shift where the esports had this really nice niche in the Twitch community, and the casual side is really nice niche on the YouTube community, and there was some crossover, and the Overwatch League comes over to try to bridge that gap between the two audiences, and then instead of bridging the gap, it just essentially drives out the casual fan base because the Overwatch team basically decided to not do anything for that side of the fan base. And so that's kind of my overall kind of frustrations kind of voiced. And maybe when Overwatch 2 actually drops in October and we're in the off season for the Overwatch League, I'll have more desire to make that content, and maybe the casual audience will come back to YouTube looking for more content like that. But really, it is kind of just sad to kind of see the state of Overwatch content on YouTube as a result of really just kind of mismanagement of the Overwatch team and how they put out news. I don't know. That's just kind of my thoughts on what's going on. Really just kind of what I wanted to talk about was that in particular. I really just kind of want to give my thoughts on the kind of state of Overwatch content over the past couple of years and let you guys in a little bit to my current mind on the state of Overwatch content on YouTube. I'd love to hear from some of you guys as well. Give me your thoughts and opinions on how you feel about what Overwatch content has been over the past few years. If you think that the YouTube scene truly is dead, or if the scene is kind of going to return with Overwatch 2. I think it really is something interesting to talk about and something that I'm kind of curious to hear people's thoughts on. So that's all I really have for you all today. Thank you so much for watching and sticking with me over the past couple of years. It has been a very, very, very long road, and I'm hoping that the future of Overwatch content continues to be better overall for the fan base, and I'm hoping that we can continue to get more of that fun, casual style content now that we are back to Overwatch 2 coming out and back to that kind of regular content cycle. But that's all for today. Hope you're all staying safe. Hope you're all staying healthy. And until next time, bye.